Hello everyone, thank you for joining today's webinar. My name is John Xavier and I am CEO of D-Matrix, which is exclusive representative of Eskimi programmatic platform in Vietnam. We have been hearing a lot from our brand and agency partners on how the business have disrupted during the COVID-19 pandemic. The world is in a state of rapid and dramatic change in all facets of life. It has effect both in short term and long term. It has changed how we work, shop, eat, play, consume media, and interact with the brand. This has in fact brought many new big challenges, but also opportunities for the brand. Today, our powerful panel of speakers from the industry will be sharing some insights and opportunities with you all. I would like to introduce you to our speakers for today, Mr. Matt Kattan, Group Head Strategy for Omnicom Media Group Vietnam, Mr. Rakesh Singh, founder of Visionfly and ex-managing director of Havas Media Vietnam, Mr. Yasir Riaz, managing director of Eskimi in Indonesia. Before we start, you can share your questions with us in the Q&A box, which is visible below your webinar screen. And the speakers will try to address as many questions as possible during this webinar. Handing over to our first speaker, Rakesh, to take it further. Rakesh.
Hi, John. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you, John. And thank you, Eskimi team, for this great opportunity. It's been a great honor to be part of this webinar. Over the past few days, I've been researching and I've been reading, obviously, on the net to to see what the brands have been doing across the globe. I've been talking to a few brand stakeholders and getting their point of view. What I would like to do today is, share my point of view. John, sorry, I'm not able to share the screen.
You'll see a button which is there, share screen on the below of the link.
Yeah.
Yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, can you see me? Yeah.
Yes, we can
so
see
what
your
I'm going
screen.
to share is, yeah. Thank you. So what I'm going to share is, my point of view on the topic, and see what the brands have been doing, not only in the region but across the globe. To begin with, I would like to put a question which I would rather want to ask. I would encourage all of us to ask ourselves today, when we switch on our TV, what would we want to see? Well, the human psychology is we would not like to associate with something which reminds us of distress and the apathy which we all have been going through. We would obviously want to see something good happening in our lives. That is the premise of which I'm going to build my my presentation on. Today, COVID has brought in many disruptions in the market. Globally, the virus shock is severe. It is much more severe than the past recessions which has happened. The 2008 financial crisis, which was so far the biggest crisis the market and the globe has seen, this is supposed to be much more bigger than that. And it not only touches the individuals, it has touched the corporate world, it has touched the entire economy across the globe. So therefore, this phenomena is quite obvious to get in, not only into the corporate world, but also into individuals' life. Everyone is deeply impacted with this unprecedented and unexpected challenge. So therefore, what I feel is going dark is something a brand should be least concerned about. They should rather be talking to the consumers. This is a time when we need to say that we are here for you. And this is definitely not the time when you need to go blank. But how do we communicate to our consumers? How do we ensure that we do not lose our consumer loyalty is something the brands need to think of. Well, I came across many brands who have been genuinely trying to make an effort, trying to build that relationship. And some of the few brands which I felt really came across was this brand Ford, which has been constantly putting its effort, not only to sell cars, but also to bring that extra closeness with the consumers. Ford's credit arm has gone out of the way and given about 90 to 120 days credit to its consumers who have purchased cars over the last few weeks. Amazon, I'm sure most of us who have kids have heard this, that Amazon is offering free audio book series for children. AB Beverages, one of the top brewers across the globe, they have come forward and offered 2 billion liquors free due to shortage of the sanitizers. They have donated alcohol, which will be converted into sanitizers. So those are a little effort, or rather, I would say a larger effort which the brands have been taking. Life before COVID, as we all have seen, so far it's been a distant dream for us, perhaps during the last couple of months. It was all revolving around going to school, going for work, groceries, shopping mall, gyms, restaurants, movies, and everything. And we all are eagerly waiting for, waiting to get back to this normal life. And while we all have been going through COVID, we all have reinvented new things. Work from home, which was something which was existing earlier as well, has seen a new innovation. People have got adapted to this new methodology of working from home. Online shopping, which is again growing earlier, has got a tremendous boost during this time. Home learning, home exercising, home entertainment, all this have again taken a new shape. Staying home is obviously changing the consumer's buying pattern. Some of them might last for a short while, but some of them would remain for a longer time, perhaps. Panic buying has been there across the globe. Shopping online, which was anyway growing, has seen a tremendous growth during this time. People during this time are preferring more for a home-cooked meal and a canned food rather than going out to the restaurants. Travel restrictions, obviously it's a restriction for now, but then people are eagerly waiting to start traveling very soon. In the midst of all this, obviously luxury shopping is the least priority for now. What is the priority is basically to safeguard the finances. Another phenomena which has been seen is the movie theaters, because they all are closed. They are forced, the producers are forced to sell the content to the online platforms at a dirt cheap price. So there are platforms like Netflix, which has not only been gaining viewership, but have also been taking away market shares from the offline theaters or the movie producers. Then there's again a phenomena which is seen across the globe. The entire media consumption pattern is changing dramatically. The three key media touchpoints which I see have been growing phenomenally are the net browsing. The linear TV has again taken a growth during this time. Social media, all this have been growing at between the rate of 60 to 70% on an average across the globe. Talking about search, a few keywords which were not even there in the consideration list have taken a larger search volume across the globe. Things like sanitizers, quitting smoking, work from home, virtual queuing, house party. This was something which we never ever thought about searching for. And people have started looking for keywords like this. And that's the kind of phenomena which is happening online. And that phenomena has given a few new digital categories to emerge. New categories like online medical consultancy, online education, work from home softwares. These are the new small little categories which are evolving on the digital economy. For example, I was just reading this morning, in Vietnam itself, I saw about new online medical consultancy apps getting launched. And those are the apps, those are the new startups which are getting funded by the venture capitalists and investors. Talking about the paid search, Google and Facebook have seen a 20% drop of the last 30 years during the COVID time across the globe. And that is leading to the ad inventory cost going down. The cost per 1,000 impressions have almost reduced by 30 to 40% during this time across the globe on an average. Well, the positive aspect of this is, while some of them were already growing in the past before COVID has given a boost to some of the things which were growing. For example, one classic example I would see is the phenomenal growth happening in the IT, the information technology sector during this time. IT sector was growing almost double since, almost at a double-digit rate since last recession, which happened in 2008. And that has grown multifold during the last 30 days, last 30 to 60 days across the globe. Another phenomenon which is observed is, which is largely currently seen in the US, is there is a phenomenal growth of the freelance workers. The freelance workers is expected to overtake the non-freelance workers in the year 2027 in US. And that is a phenomena perhaps can be observed across the globe. Well, when would this recovery begin? We all, very few of us would be able to say that. But what I would see, what we can definitely predict is there are few new habits which the consumers would pick up. Old habits would not return very soon. So therefore, for the brands, it's very important to build a very strong brand. One of the research done by Kantar and the Brand Z post financial crisis, which happened in 2008, was said that the stronger brands outshoot the top 500 brands listed in the stock market by 9 times. And therefore, it's all the more reason for the brands to focus on building their image during this time. Talking about some of these few startups which got established post the last 2008 financial crisis have currently become the necessity. They have grown phenomenally since the last financial crisis, and this perhaps gives us an indication of what is going to come post-COVID. A few top categories where consumers are expected to spend less, which we all can perhaps make an estimate. People would not definitely spend much on the restaurants. Travel business would definitely suffer. Tobacco, people are thinking about quitting smoking, so those kind of things would actually kind of emerge. Luxury shopping would definitely take a backseat. Things like gambling and other things would definitely take a backseat. But what would get more prominence, perhaps, is the focus on healthcare sector, the vitamins, supplements, fresh and organic food, household care, insurance, education. These are some of the sectors which are expected to perhaps grow in the years to come, in the days to come. And therefore, this phenomena is again closely observed by the venture capitalists. This is a study of the last 30 days. The venture capitalists have looked at these few sectors, and 70% of the total investments in the last 30 days have gone into some of these sectors. So this again kind of gives us an indication of where is the investment going in and what is the future. Well, with this phenomena, I've tried to put together a few steps what the brands need to take. Well, as I said, brands should definitely not focus on selling at this moment. Brands should rather focus on building that trust and confidence among the consumers. So therefore, they need to pick up things like anticipating the consumer's needs for this moment. They need to be much more agile in terms of the marketing and advertising spends. Spend where it is required to spend. Do not overspend. No one is asking to spend so much, but then definitely keep communicating with the consumers. Give them a reassurance tone. Do not just be off the screen, be there on the screen, but then communicate differently. Do not communicate to sell, but communicate to give them trust and confidence. Keep focusing on the shifting consumer habit, because that is something which is shifting, and people and consumers would carry certain habits in the days to come. And most importantly, transform yourself into a purpose-led brand. Well, I've tried to also see, some of the brands which are communicating in each of these spaces. I came across Unilever's strategy. Unilever has not cut down their spends. They have rather maintained the spends, but they're rather trying to take, the advantage of the reducing media costs. They're rather reallocating their budgets to the more important more important categories within their portfolio. For example, the investments are not happening in the food sector, but rather it's happening more on the health and hygiene category. P&G is again a classic example. P&G has taken a step of increasing the spend by almost 50% at this time. They again want to take this leverage this time to be present in the consumer's mind much more than what they were before. And then the brands like L'Oreal. L'Oreal has stopped its offline investments. They're going as per the media, where the people's focus is. People are spending more time online, so they have redistributed the investments online. And talking about reassurance, this is a classic example. The brands like Marriott. Marriott is giving the confidence to the loyal consumers that we will travel again. And that's the kind of confidence you need to give to the consumers. And then there are brands like KFC who have been very innovative. Their strategy was about their communication approach was about finger licking, and now they have changed that to by sharing a much more important social message, by giving the message of social distancing. Very, very innovative. Then the brands like Nike. Nike always stood for, it was always known as a purposeful brand. It always stood for sports, and it's giving the confidence. It's again talking to the people. Very important, very strong message. If you ever dreamed of playing for millions around the world, now is your chance. And that's the kind of confidence you have to give to the people. And then brands like McDonald's, again, very innovative. For this time being, they have changed their logo, very, very creatively showcasing and sharing that message of social distancing. And then last but not the least, I would want to share this, I would want to show this video to you.
Guinness has been around for 260 years, and we've been lucky to be a part of your St. Patrick's Day for generations. While we know this year things feel different, we've learned over time that we're pretty tough when we stick together. So what do you really need for some St. Paddy's Day cheer? A pint? Sure, we'll take one. Some corned beef? Yeah, if you're offering. Irish music? We'll sing along. A big parade? Don't worry, we'll march again. On St. Patrick's Day, we're all Irish. But let's not forget that every day we're all human. What matters is being with people you care about. Whether you're planning to safely celebrate at the pub or hosting at home, if you can call the people around you, friends or family, you've already won. When you raise a pint of Guinness, also remember to raise each other. Be good to one. Celebrate safely. Thank the ones protecting us. And now or later, don't forget to stop in and say hi to all our friends in pubs and bars. As for us, we signed a 9,000-year lease on the brewery in fact, so we're not going anywhere. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
A very strong message of resilience and care in honor of St. Patrick's Day. Last but not the least, I would want to share this interesting insight from McKinsey. They did this post the last recession, and they found that brands which are communicating constantly with the consumers are the ones which were easily surviving the crisis. With that, I would want to end my presentation. Thank you so much. stay safe.
Thank you, Rakesh. Rakesh?
Yeah, John.
Yes.
I mean,
I think we have one question from the
yeah.
attendees. It says, do you think post-COVID, will consumer look for more offer and promotion for selling their product? What's your point of view on this?
Well, what I think is, obviously, the top of mind in the current consumer's mind is obviously saving. Financial saving is the most important thing. So they would obviously get enticed, to the brands which are offering more freebies. But then that doesn't hold good for all the brands or all the category. Uh, but uh, but but for the brands, I think that would definitely be a good way to entice them.
So that's great.
Does that answer the question?
Just checking if we have any other question. Again, we have one more question which says, do you think loyalty programs and incentivization will be beneficial for the brands during this period to maintain the customer loyalty?
I think what I think is at this moment, what is more important is not to try and sell our product. Anything which is good for them, anything which communicates to them, which gives them confidence. Those kind of approaches, something the brands should take. And if that includes giving them loyalty for future, future sales, I think that as an approach which can be taken by the brands.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Rakesh. Thank you so much for your time. I think it's time to introduce our next speaker, Mr. Matt Kattan, Group Head Strategy for Omnicom Media Group Vietnam. And he's addressing a very important and relevant topic at this time, how to justify advertising during this climate. Over to you, Matt.
Hey, John, thanks for the intro. And thank you, Rakesh, for the good talk. I think that was super interesting, and fortunately, a lot of what I'm going to say now will kind of correlate with what you've just said, back up some of what you've just said, and just kind of help everyone understand that the whole marketing piece all goes hand in hand, and how do we understand the whole big picture. So I'm just going to share my screen. Okay. Can everybody see that?
Yes, we can. We can see your screen.
Great. Okay, so yeah, so as John said, the topic that I want to talk about is really justifying advertising spend. So it's not just why we're spending money now, but what's going to be happening over the next 6 months, 12 months, 18 months. How is COVID going to impact us for the years to come? So kind of to make us think about this most effectively, I'm going to look at the different types of businesses and how different types of businesses will be affected differently by the virus and by the upcoming change in circumstances. Then to explain how we can justify advertising, I'm going to talk about effective share of voice. So I will explain what that is and go into a bit more detail of how effective share of voice can help us justify advertising. And that's really if we're talking to either to clients, or if we're a CMO and we're talking to our CEO and they're trying to cut costs and we're trying to explain, okay, this is why we need to spend on advertising now. There's also media benefits. So similar to, as Rakesh said, some of the costs are coming down now. So how do we take advantage of that? And this is not really just my point of view. So I've got some historical references. A lot of this information that justifies advertising spend during a recession is historically proven over like 100 years plus. So it can be taken and used to effect now, basically with the historical knowledge that we've got. So I talked about the 3 phases. So we've got basically the phase that we're in now. So we've got the COVID crisis. So this is different everywhere, different in different countries. Luckily here in Vietnam, we kind of are coming out of the crisis phase as we can now go back to work. We're out of lockdown. But, in the UK, in America, this might go on for much longer, parts of the developed world. So the actual crisis period might last for quite a while. The next phase is like kind of back to reality. So this is kind of how I feel right now. Like, I feel like I've been locked down for 6 weeks and I kind of want to get out. I want to buy things. It's a 4-day weekend coming up here in Vietnam. So I want to go on holiday. I want to do something. So kind of feels like a back to reality. But really, we are going to be entering in H2 in 2021 a global recession. Like, luckily in this part of the world, we're likely to keep growing our economies. I mean, the Vietnamese economy is still forecast to grow in 2020, so it won't be a recession. But there will be a global recession, and that will affect everybody, obviously. So the kinds of businesses that you're in really affects how you should react. So I've split it into 3 different kinds of businesses. So the businesses that are flexing. So this is if you're in a really good position and you can, if not capitalize, at least you're in a position where you're offering a relevant product and service. So justifying ad spend is straightforward because you're making a lot of money. There's other kinds of businesses where maybe they need to change, they need to fix their operations, do something different to enable them to capitalize or to stay afloat or to keep cash flow coming. And then there's the freeze. So if you're a business where you just have to keep afloat, stay alive, not go bankrupt, stay in business, then there's a different situation. So the flexes, in Vietnam, like the likes of Baymin, so they are pure play food delivery services. Obviously, they're offering a service. I'm seeing them advertised everywhere at the moment. They can really flex. It's a great opportunity for them to grow their share of market right now because that's what they focus on. The supermarket, so like Big C, obviously they can flex and do very, very well. And your services like Netflix, so they've got no scale issues. It's a scalable business. They can push more and more subscriptions. They can capitalize on people staying at home. So these kind of businesses can really flex. And there shouldn't be a big problem justifying ad spend for these kind of businesses. So just to put that into a bit of context here, so this is the hierarchy of needs that people will be familiar with. So if you're kind of in these personal care, or you're offering food or health or safety, any of these kind of industries, then you can definitely really push very, very hard. So I've just highlighted here that if you do have an authentic or important reason to speak, you can be bold and flex your muscles and invest strongly. So this is just an example. I'm not going to play the video. You can watch it at your own time. But this is the government of the UK, their Be a Hero video for helping communicate how people should act during the virus. So obviously the government's got a strong reason to communicate, go very, very big. They've done an amazing video. It's super interesting. It's funny. It's colorful. It's humorous. So all the kind of things that Rakesh was saying about how you should communicate, they are doing it and going big. On a more sort of basic level, you've got brands like Ace Cook. So Ace Cook, a Japanese brand that sells noodles. Obviously, this kind of non-perishable food is super relevant when it's stay at home. So these guys can potentially push very, very hard and really increase sales if they want to. You've got personal care brands like Nivea, who obviously will still be able to continue selling by e-commerce and have got a strong reason to talk because it's health, healthcare, looking after yourself. And at the right, obviously, we've got Baymin again. So they're doing a lot more advertising to capitalize on the fact that people have to use their product and service a lot more on this stage. So next you've got the fixers. So it's a little bit less obvious when you look at the companies that are fixing. So like Grab can obviously deliver Grab food, but their Grab transport services, the taxis, were not operating for like a month. Airbnb is way, way down as people are not traveling. But these guys, Airbnb, they don't own hotels, so they're in a position to fix their business, to stay afloat. They can't advertise. Then you've got things like education companies. So University of Cambridge is just an example, but it could be any educator where they traditionally are, say, teaching people in schools. But how can they change their business operations, and therefore how can they advertise the change in the operations to be able them to grow more revenue or get income? So this is the more higher level hierarchy of needs. So entertainment, education, productivity, connectivity, all this kind of stuff. So these kinds of businesses, they can potentially fix what they're doing, and there's an opportunity for them to increase their sales through tactics they can execute now. So tactical executions. So this is just a super random one. So this is a Ukrainian company, and they've just done these really basic, straightforward ads that were created in a day. It's a pure play Snapchat campaign just for Snapchat. And it's really basic ads, just telling people that they've got these different kind of apps on their phone they can do to help them meditate, to help them sleep, to help them stay calm while in this situation. So this is a business that focuses on personal health and well-being, and they can tactically be very agile and nimble and deliver something that's going to help people, but also help them grow their business. Then you've got the discretionary category. So the companies where people probably are not going to be spending their money right now. So in the UK, so Topshop, Arcadia, it's a huge retail chain that's been operating 50 years, 40 years. They're likely to go out of business because people are not going to the high street. Bamboo Airways in Vietnam, they launched like a year and a half ago, so don't have that much liquidity probably. So difficult for these kind of companies to stay afloat during COVID. So really this is about staying alive if possible, freezing operations, keeping jobs, keeping the business afloat. But saying that, so if you're in that freeze category, you can still, there is still a rationale for advertising. So Rakesh played a video earlier from the Marriott, which was talking about how people will travel again. And this is a video here also, it's from a UK travel company, basically, and what they're doing is, so the purpose of their business is obviously to sell flights, sell travel, but people can't travel right now. So the question to be posed really is for this kind of business, so like a travel business, so a hotel business like Marriott, travel airline company, like how can these companies justify ad campaigns when nobody is flying? And this is the core question when it comes to justifying budgets. So then we go back to the global recession. So we've kind of looked at the businesses. So if you're going to flex your muscles and if you can capitalize now, or if you're in a position where you can fix your business and still do well, there's tactics we can implement today to keep things running. But as we look through to 2021, that's not a tactical approach, that is strategy. So what are the strategies we're going to implement as brands to see us through 2021 and come out of this period where we're growing faster than our competitors and hopefully transforming and doing better. So just take a quick step back, and you've got to realize what the benefits of marketing are during a recession. And the benefits are quite clear, they're quite well documented and have been over time. So you have to first of all think about the long-term value of advertising. If all you're doing is thinking about driving sales today, driving sales tomorrow and next week, then justifying a big advertising budget is very difficult. What you need to take into consideration, what you need to be thinking about is the excess share of voice, eSOV, and your market share. So I'll explain in a bit more detail later what eSOV is, but it's crucial that you understand this so that you can justify your advertising budgets. The nuts of it is that if you maintain your share of voice, your excess share of voice, if you maintain your budget, your excess share of voice will go up relative to your competitors who are likely to decrease their budgets. So this then increases the chance of growth during and post-recession. Added to that, so Rakesh also talked about this, when the lower overall advertising budgets in market, it means that the advertising costs are coming down. So your maintaining of your current budget not only gets you more market share, more share of voice, you also can buy more media. So basically the more available inventory and less competition. So just to credit Mark Ritterson here, so this is kind of basic marketing science, but this explains why understanding eSOV is so important, and it's really well researched. So there's a strong equilibrium between a brand's share of voice and their market share. So if a brand has got a positive eSOV, so if it's above the pink line, basically the brand's market share should increase until it aligns and until it reaches an equilibrium again. So you can see how the B for brand there has moved across. The market share has increased to 25% as it's hit their equilibrium. So as it's gone from the share of voice 20% to hit the equilibrium. So if you're spending $3 million a year on advertising before a recession, and then something like the COVID-19 or the GSE or something like that happens, and the economy is suppressed. So the category or the whole industry reduces ad spend by 50%. That means your excess share of voice increases. So this then means that your $3 million naturally gives you a much higher eSOV. So your eSOV might go from 10% up to 20% or whatever, but it's going to increase because the category is reducing spend. So now your $3 million have got much more value. It's got a much higher eSOV. And so by maintaining your budget, you're going to be able to significantly increase your market share. So by maintaining that same $3 million, your share of market will increase. So as you look into 2021, 2022, that's going to have massive impact on revenue and profitability in the long run. So added to that, so when you also consider that when you've got the additional share of voice, you can actually apply to that, there's lower bid on media costs. So when you're bidding on Google, when you're bidding on Facebook, when you're on YouTube, your same dollar is going to get you more media. So if you maintain your budget, you can buy more media and your competition is spending less, so your media goes a lot further. If you're buying TV, there's potentially TV bonus, you can get additional added spots, your money can go further. Obviously with outdoor, if you're buying outdoor now, long-term deals, there's deals be made. So your media dollars are going to potentially be going a lot further. When your competition are pulling back, you can make real growth moves. So then if you're really bold, this is just looking if you were to increase your 3 million to 5 million, and some brands will be doing this. I think Rakesh earlier mentioned P&G going really, really strong because they recognize if they increase that ad budget when the competition are dropping theirs, they can get significant increase in eSOV versus their competition, which will give them massive profitability benefits in the long run. So like I said earlier, this is not just me talking. There's a lot of documented examples throughout history that kind of show this. So you've got the Great Depression in the 20s, the 1974 recession, the 1990s recession, the GSC around 2008. So these do, and there's other examples as well, but these quite clearly have been studied and show the impact. So from the Great Depression, you've got the Harvard Business Review, and they're illustrating the net impact of advertising during recession. So it's going back over 100 years, you can see this. So if you look at it on the column on the left, you've got the index in 1920, the index of 100. The top row is the brands that increased advertising. So by 1924 on the right, their index is at 121, so 21% growth. No advertising stayed flat, and those that decreased advertising obviously became smaller. So you can see the clear, massive impact of the brands who increased their advertising during that period. So the 1974-75 recession, so there's a study by Meldrum and Fewsmith, and it shows that the companies that did not cut their ad spend increased much higher growth afterwards. So it's a similar sort of thing, looking at the index from 1972 to 1977, and you can see on the right that the brands that basically invested more saw significant growth over those 5 years. And then you've got the GSC, and that's a bit more relevant, a bit more up to date. So Peter Field, who's very well known in the industry, wrote the long and short of it, and he did a detailed IPA study. And the IPA study looked at basically all of the effectiveness award submissions that have been submitted post 2008. So showing brands who've actually grown over that period. And you can see that the brands that had spent more money had very clearly grown a lot more than the brands that weren't spending on advertising. So those kind of studies show time and time again that, that if you are willing to be bold, willing to be strong, willing to spend, the share of market benefits are very, very clear, well documented, and you will see the benefits in the long term as we come out of recession. That's to say it's not easy. So do you have skin on the game? What I'm referring to here is even brands like Coca-Cola, so one of the biggest advertisers in the world, they're pulling back on advertising. So why are they doing that? Probably because they've got massive brand equity. And they feel that their brand equity is going to enable them to see them through the recession. and why people have stopped spending. But it's not easy. So you have got to be very confident. You've got to understand the risks and reward, and it's not an easy game to play. So are you in a position to be bold enough and strong enough to execute, maintaining your budget or even increasing your budget during this time? So just in conclusion, the main point. So it's not about profiting in this recession. It's really about capitalizing on the recovery, making sure that we profit afterwards. There is potentially a diminished role for short-term sales activations. So right now, people aren't buying as much. People are not going into retail shops and buying new clothes. People are not going on holidays. So if you're trying to get short-term sales activations, there's less of a role for that than normal. Stay authentic. So if you've got nothing relevant today, just stick to business as usual and be funny, use humanity, but be authentic and be authentic to your brand. But really focus on a balanced mix of brand building and sales activations. So we do still need sales activations to push short-term sales, but think about brand building as a long-term investment for your long-term brand health. And be bold if you can be. So thank you, take care, and hopefully that helps.
Thank you, mate. Thank you for a wonderful session. However, I see we have 3 questions here. One is how fashion industry should act on this flex, fix, and freeze stages.
So great question. So it is definitely in a fixed situation because a lot of people will be pulling back on ad spend. But the fashion industry is a situation where it can fix. So increasingly going online with e-commerce, increase e-commerce sales, increase your e-commerce routes to market. But there is going to be a hit in terms of retail sales and people actually buying as much. So there's definitely that opportunity to change the business operations. That's what I mean by fix. So think about where your sales are coming from, how you can maximize that, but then also think about your brand. So you've got to think about that brand building versus sales activation. So I'm presuming that you've fixed the business in a way that you're maximizing e-commerce, but how does your strategy apply over 2020, 2021 to make sure that in 2021, your business is as strong as possible to drive that growth? So now in the short term, yes, sales, fixing the business, driving e-commerce. But in the future, how are you going to increase your share of market and how are you going to make sure that you're in a strong position to avoid the downturn that comes with the recession? That's the way I would look at it.
Great. I hope for any questions. Yes, we have a few more questions which is coming up. I think the second one is overall in the region, the CPC, CPM costs are reducing across the platform, but the efficiency is also reduced since most are online actively. So question 1 is, do you think it will remain the same post-COVID for at least initial few months? Second is what the brands should do to maintain their fair amount of SOV without damaging the brand image.
Okay. So do I think it will remain the same post-COVID for at least a few months? So I think that the costs are going to stay low for several months because a lot of brands will pull back. Efficiency depends on what you're referring to in terms of efficiency. So efficiency, I'm guessing, means less people are looking for your product, so less people are clicking through, and you're getting a lower conversion rate or acquisition rates or whatever efficiency metric you're looking at. So I think that that's going to have to be something you're going to have to respond to based on your consumer. So if you're looking to drive sales acquisitions, then you're going to have less people you'll be able to sell to. So once again, it's actually kind of the same question. It's sales tactics, and are you balancing your short-term sales tactics with your long-term brand ambitions? So if you focus on CPM and actually eyeballs and getting people to see your brand and having a high share of voice, then you'll see the benefit long-term. But of course, there's less people looking to buy right now. So you'll be able to get lower, you will get maybe lower rates at buying media, but your conversion rates might be lower as well. So once again, it's about balancing that short-term sales acquisition, sales tactics with your long-term brand strategy. And number 2, what brands should do to maintain their fair amount of share voice without damaging their brand image. this kind of crosses over to what Rakesh was saying in terms of how do we communicate, what kind of things we want to say, how to remain authentic. My personal point of view is if you've not got anything relevant to say, keep things business as usual. Talk about your product, talk about your brand. If you can be helpful, be helpful. People don't really want to hear from a brand telling them that something that's not relevant. Like, if you truly have something relevant to say, go ahead and say it. If not, advertise your brand, advertise your product in a relevant, humorous way, in a way that people enjoy. Focus on humanity, on humor, on emotion. And you will naturally grow your share of voice by investing the right amount.
Great. We have 2 more questions. Let's be a little quick so that we don't run out of the time. So the third question is, do you feel brands will have to find alternate channels to communicate with audience apart from regular YouTube and Facebook, which are flooded with all advertisers? I'm sure we agree on that, though.
Maybe you want to answer this one, John.
Yes, I'm sure brands do have to move out of YouTube and Facebook.
For sure. Look, so YouTube and Facebook are fantastic places for reaching brands en masse, but they don't give us all the options. So depending on how much you're investing, what audiences you're trying to reach, what data you've got in hand, there's different options that you can take advantage of. And I'd certainly encourage brands to look at programmatic executions, how they can use data to reach new audiences in more effective ways. Of course, YouTube and Facebook are going to be the stability and the main area that we can communicate by. But as the question asked, all brands are there. So if you can find a different way, a different platform, a different way of communicating with your audiences outside of that area, then that can potentially enable you to connect with your audience in a deeper way. So if you're in a really relevant website that your consumers are really going to regularly because it's really useful for them and your product's well aligned to that, then you should take advantage of that. So that's something that needs to obviously have the due diligence behind it, but yes, it's a huge opportunity for that.
Definitely. I think the last question, let's take this last question, which is right now the COVID-19 is causing an enormous affections to brands as well as the media industry. So do you have any advices that's suitable for some brands that need to recover after this disease?
So it's I think it really depends on the kind of brand. My personal point of view, so I'm working with large brands who are relatively stable. And so my point of view and the way that I would be talking with my clients is about making sure that we maintain our share of voice to ensure that we maintain and grow our share of market post the virus, post the recession. If you're with a smaller brand, if you're with a niche local brand, then it's going to have to be that balance that's right for you. So is it just sales tactics in the short term? What's the long-term strategy? Are the goals just to stay afloat as a business, or can you adapt to sell more? It's a generic question that needs a specific answer. So I think it depends on the kind of brand, the kind of product, the kind of service that's being offered.
Great. Thank you, Matt. That was such a great insight, and thank you for sharing your thoughts on this. It's time to invite our third speaker, Yasir Riaz, who's Managing Director for Eskimi in Indonesia. Over to you, Yasir.
Thanks, John.
Welcome, Yasir.
So, John, I think Matt and Rakesh have very well captured the benefits of why we should continue advertising and how we should be advertising during this period. What I would like to do is to highlight some of the sensitivities that we should keep in mind when advertising during this pandemic. We know that as the pandemic has spread across the world, like almost a third of the global population is under lockdown, the normal life has been put on hold for many people. The typical buying behaviors are on hold, and this is the, I think, clearest sign that brands have to interact with the market in a fundamentally very different way. One of the first coronavirus initiatives from a brand that got serious attention was LVMH, the Louis Vuitton transition to making hand sanitizer. And I think it was such a great move from a brand which usually focuses on exclusivity. Now, we all know not all businesses can make hand sanitizers. Not all have factories or networks to start manufacturing ventilators like the Ford did. So how exactly businesses contribute depends on the individual case. This isn't like a one size fits all situation, but there are creative ways to do so. And businesses have to look at some of the longer term implication of this outbreak. So there are basically two questions which everyone has to face these days. One is, what should I do? Should I continue advertising on media? And if I do, then what should I be saying? Now remember, there's no right answer here. Each business will have its own unique perspective and parameters. Whether to advertise, continue investing money in the brand, and second, what and how you should be addressing the consumers. During this time, the brands could be tempted to go into a cost-cutting mode, but we should all realize that this is a unique window where brands can earn trust by maintaining their presence and delivering relevant value in a period of anxiety. Now, as we have seen earlier from Matt examples that when brands try to cut their budgets, what impact it could have. So there was a study done by Kantar over 600 brands. They studied when they reduced their ad spend, what is the impact on the brand metrics. So they saw that overall, there was a 39% drop in the brand communication awareness when a brand stopped advertising in the short term. Not only the total brand awareness came down, but these brands also lose in key imagery and their incidence to purchase also goes down. While the brands lose their equity, it is even more harder for these brands to bounce back when they resume advertising. So therefore, it's important that brands should keep some sort of presence in the market and try remain in front of their audiences. We have seen that with the lockdown across several countries, the media consumption patterns have changed across all demographics. People are consuming more digital content along with TV. They're streaming more video, playing more games, reading more online, how to best use their time. They've enrolled for online education, music, entertainment, online shopping. All these have seen an increase of 1.3 to 2.5 times the normal time spent on these activities. Here you could see how media consumption has changed across millennials and Gen X. Millennials have started consuming a lot more of online content, whereas Gen X has also increased their digital consumption. But if you would notice, the usage of TV has also really gone up. Now, this provides an opportunity for brands to reach out to these audiences where they are. Instead of struggling to find and choose what these audiences are consuming more online, now there is more so the need to use the programmatic platforms. One of the programmatic advertising biggest asset is the ability to take advantage of these sudden changes in consumer behavior. The agility and responsiveness that a programmatic platform provides is well suited to match the speed and the unpredictable nature of the audience's behavior that we are facing these days. We know that even the best of the marketers may find themselves facing challenge to keep up during such volatile times. But there are several steps that can be taken to ensure that the brands are visible to their audience, no matter where they're going online. So, are the consumers willing to listen to the brands during this crisis? Well, a vast majority of the consumers say they are interested in hearing from brands that can help them navigate this crisis. They want to continue to hear from brands and companies on what they have to offer. So their consumers are definitely open to listen to brands during this crisis. But we have to be careful with our messages. While only 8% of the people say that brands should stop advertising, almost 3/4 of the audiences say that brands should not exploit this situation. whereas 40% of the consumers feel that brands should avoid humorous tones. So there's definitely opportunity for innovation, as you can tap into the consumers' evolving lifestyles, their new priorities, changing values, including things like employee protection and support during the economic times. When we talk of messaging, not all content needs to be new. We can look at some of the old ads and footages and repurpose those because they could just work well during this crisis as before. You can also choose to deliver advertising that suggests a degree of normality, show how these consumers can make the most of their time with small indulgences while they stay safe in their homes. I was looking at this recent launch by Ben & Jerry's ice cream. So they have launched a Netflix chilled flavor for people to consume ice cream at home while they're watching Netflix. So while brands should continue advertising during this time period, there are certain brands and categories which need to slow down or stop spending. With countries under lockdowns, there's definitely not much sense for travel and tourism brands to advertise. Another category which I think where there need to be a bit of a slowdown required is restaurants, out-of-home entertainment, sports, because we all have to practice social distancing, or products with a short in supply in a certain market. Certain cleaning products, bleach, toilet paper, those which are already short in supply in the market, they definitely need not advertise during this period. But then the brands which should increase spend in the short term are categories that can make people's life easier during this crisis, such as supermarkets, home delivery, food delivery, home entertainment. Content from these brands could put people ahead of, could help people not only make best use of their time at home, but also how they could adjust to a different way of living that they're going through. Now, in some categories, ads might not have much to say related to COVID. So, which is, I think, absolutely fine. They could just be product centric, focusing on whatever the needs they fulfill for their consumers. And in other categories where there's not much to say about the product, continue providing emotional support by showcasing the positive values or suggesting togetherness and solidarity during this tough time. I just wanted to show one example. Earlier, Rakesh and Matt have shown several examples, but this is just a nice, fun way by Burger King to show how you could continue enjoying Burger King while you are at home by using simple ingredients from the supermarket. And they went a step, they went one step ahead, and they've partnered with Carrefour and Uber to deliver these products to the consumer's home. So there's definitely opportunity for brands to share fun stuff to do while people are at home, infuse positivity and optimism, and provide them ways of fighting this boredom with fun and laughter. After all, everyone wants to feel a bit of normal during this gloomy and lockdown period. So advertisers have always wanted to avoid coverage of the most upsetting topics, right? And how do we ensure that brands are able to communicate in a brand safe environment during this period? Now, in February, coronavirus became the second most common word on the block list for news publishers. It used to be 8th most common in January, and over a period of 1 month, it has become the second most common word. If anyone is guessing what the first most common word on the block list, then it's the President of the United States. So the pace at which the COVID-19 related keywords are being blocked, it seems to be growing and day by day. But I think there is a caution that needs to be practiced when we are blocking these COVID-19 related keywords. There was an analysis done of over 2.8 million online pages containing COVID-19 related keywords across different publishers by a brand safety platform, Verity, and they found 60% of them were brand safe. 82% of the people are actively seeking out coronavirus related news and content online. Another 87% are consuming more news generally because of the evolving coronavirus situation. So we need to remember that not all COVID-19 stories are damaging for the brand. A simple approach of don't block virus content or block all the virus related content will not be effective approach. There are many publishers who are providing high quality content in a very premium environment to a highly engaged audience related to COVID-19. So how do you survive the lockdown during the COVID-19 breakout? That's a sort of a content which a lot of brands might find relevance. Fun things to do at home, online education, entertainment during the COVID-19 lockdown. These are all examples of content which have the COVID-19 term, but are being delivered in a very different and a very brand safe environment. So just going with the simple approach of block everything related to coronavirus, or do not block the content, will not work. While COVID-19 has coverage around deaths and tragedy, but it has also content around how people are finding innovative ways of enjoying their time at home. So one would have to take a careful approach on how this is being addressed at the brand level. Now, another survey by IES, a lot of coronavirus news is ad supported. So 23% of the people feel less favorable towards a brand where ad was seen close to the coronavirus content. And a large majority, 70%, almost 70% of the people said their sentiment was unchanged when they saw a brand ad next to the coronavirus content. So while there are some people who might not want to see a brand ad next to coronavirus content, there's a large majority which is totally okay seeing content around COVID-19. Now, there's definitely some categories which have higher risk if they are placed close to the coronavirus content. Food and beverages, travel brands, real estate, auto, they seem to be the categories where consumers don't want to see brands advertising close to coronavirus content. And the categories where the consumers are much more favorable are basically health and pharmaceutical, government, not-for-profit organizations, and education. So there are four key things to look at when you are defining your brand safety strategy during this period. One is to target brand suitable domains, create a whitelist of reputable and reliable sites which you want to advertise on. Avoid sensitive content which is related to deaths, tragedy, and shocking news. Review your keyword list. At times, the keyword blocking just goes way too far, which is why I think a better approach is to have a wide list of specific websites. Identify the website and domains where you want to be advertising. For example, you might choose to advertise on CNN, BBC, because these are reputable domains. And they would have content around COVID, which might be sensitive, which you can definitely filter out based on your keyword blocking list. But they would also have content which is about how people are coping up with this lockdown and how they are spending time at home doing different activities. So this situation is not one where either more or less keyword blocking should be adopted. I guess the only protective measure is to be more precise in building your keyword blocking strategy. And either you want to stay towards those COVID-related content or away from COVID-related content, would have to match with the brand values and identity that you're working with. So revisit your keyword list and update them frequently. Look at the sites and content which is sensitive or doesn't meet the approval content ratings from IAB and put them in your blacklist. Now, how can Eskimi help the brands during this with the brand safety strategy? We can definitely help brands advertising a brand safe environment. We use 5 layers of brand safety. The first and the basic one is traffic source content information. So we look at IAB classification and security and content appropriate guidelines. We are able to look at the keywords in the URL and determine if it allows for brand suitability or brand safety guidelines. We look at the site content, so crawl the content and look for the keywords and the proximity of the keywords to each other to determine if it meets the brand suitability guidelines. Then we have a team, a dedicated team which curates whitelist and blacklist, looking at each and every domain where the ads are appearing. And we also are open to using external tools and services like IES, Moat, or Double Verify to fulfill the brand safety requirements of the different brands. Another way that Eskimi can help is by helping you stay visible to your consumers. We can help drive online sales. With stores closing down and limited business hours, consumers are moving online to buy their essential items. Now, using Eskimi's location data and audience segments, we can identify the people who have been seen in the recent past at the grocery stores or mini markets. Besides this, we can also do sharper audience targeting by using socioeconomic class and interest signals, which allows us to do a better match the audiences with the brand propositions and telco data packages, OTT subscription to pay your utility bills. Eskimi can help target these audiences based on their consumption patterns, whether they're heavy users of video, gaming, and other streaming content to drive higher subscription revenue. We can also help get the word out that certain restaurants and businesses are still open and are delivering. Advertisers can use Eskimi addressable audience DMP segments to target these audiences and drive awareness regarding delivery or drive-through services that are still being offered. Fast food restaurant or any other business can target households based on the number and age of residents in that household, or target those households who live within a certain geographic area near the restaurant and drive their sales. So with this, I would like to end my presentation. Thank you very much for the time and opportunity, and happy to take any questions if there are.
Thank you, Yasir. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. We have, in fact, 2 questions. Question 1 is, what is more important now, branding or performance-based campaign as a measurement criteria of the ad format?
Right. So I think both go hand in hand. It all goes back to the objective of your campaign. If you're driving a brand message, which is very relevant to COVID-19 and the situation that we are in, then it's would go according to your brand metrics and brand campaign KPIs. If you're running a campaign which is about driving online sales, giving opportunities to your consumers to have another channel from where they can buy, so then it would follow performance metrics. So it would again go back to what the objective of the campaign is, what the message is.
Great. Question 2 is, do you feel that post-COVID will see faster turnaround from consumers and faster consumption appetite?
Well, I don't know if the consumption is with regards to the brands or consumption of media. If it's with regards to the brand, I don't think like people have started consuming more of the products. Yes, there are occasion and instances where people are cooking more at home and eating more at home. At the same time, they're consuming media more at home. But once things get back to normal, then we will see that these increases that we have seen in consumption of brands and consumption of media would come down. It won't come down to the same level as it was pre-COVID, but definitely we'll see this peak coming down and stabilizing.
Okay, I think that's great. Well, I would like to say thank you to our speakers for sharing the deep insight and audiences, and also the audience for participating in the webinar. Eskimi is arranging many more webinars on various topics like basic of programmatic. In fact, we have a next webinar which is coming out in next few hours, which is video as creative in programmatic advertising. If anybody's interested, please do contact me, or you can also follow Eskimi DSP on LinkedIn to stay updated with other webinar schedules. Thank you so much for everyone's time. Thank you, Yasir. Thank you, all the fellow speakers. Just be safe and healthy.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.